playing with yet another tool. So this particular tool, this is just a quick demo, and I'm just going straight through it. Nothing is planned. I just wanted to show people what I've been up to regarding some weird tools. And this is a tool that stems from my use of Obsidian as a note-taking tool. I use Obsidian extensively for work. Keep all my notes in it. I use it when I take notes in meetings. I use it to prepare everything. I use it for everything. It's just my main thing. The NIEM training materials are all in a big Obsidian file, which is easily then synced up to GitHub so people can access it there. I just find it really handy. And I tried playing around with the idea of essentially stuffing all of NIEM into it, because every page in Obsidian, every note is just a markdown file. And markdown files can link to each other, and markdown files are just plain old text. So it's not difficult to take my existing existing tools that generate Wayfair, and instead generate a big Obsidian workbook. Vault, they call them vaults, but a workbook is the easier term. The problem is that I did that, but it didn't work well. You couldn't search it well because, for example, you've got a note for crash, for JCrash. You got a note for that. And inside of there, you stuff everything that would be in Wayfair. So you have everything it contains and everything it contains and everything it contains, because it included all the inheritance and everything that contains it and all of that stuff. All that text is all in there. So when you search, you're searching everything. It's like if you were in Wayfair or the SSGT for that matter, and you're searching for stuff, but instead of just searching on names and definitions, you're searching on the contents of the pages. It just didn't work well. But then I ran into something called Dataview. And Dataview is, here's Dataview. It's a plugin. It's a plugin that lets you apply metadata to notes in Obsidian and then do searches based on those notes. Set up queries and find the stuff you like based on those notes. And I went, oh, well, that sounds really cool. That sounds like a way to embed NIEM in a workbook and then be able to actually do queries on it. So that's what I did. I played around with it. So for example, there's this NIEM folder, and inside, you can see inside the folder, I don't know if you see that pop up or not, but there's 16,000 files in there. That's because all the elements and types are in there. Under elements, there's a folder for each domain, and you can open each domain up. So I can like open up J, and there's all the stuff in the justice domain. If I scroll down far enough, I'll see my favorite element, JCrash. It really is my favorite element because it's got such a deep inheritance. It's a good thing to show. So I went, oh, that's cool. So let's get down to crash, which is a bit of a scroll, just a bit of a scroll, but I know crash looks cool. And there's crash. Click on crash, and it shows up as the current note. And this stuff at the top is called front matter, and it's in YAML format. And so the front matter for each page, and every single NIEM element and type has a page, and each one has its own front matter. And they will have an alias because you can't have colons in file names, and the name of the page is the name of the file name. So you can't have a file name called JCrash. But Obsidian lets you alias these things so that I can refer to this page as J:\crash, but the page itself is just called crash in the J folder. I have the qualified name, which is the same as the alias, but it could be different. I can't think of when it would be, but that's the qualified name, so that's something you're going to query on. It's got the definition as metadata, so you can query on that. And then tags. And the tags don't make a lot of sense here. I'll show you another example. I'll look at court order just for fun. What my tags do is Obsidian lets you tag things. Every page can have however many tags you want. I break apart the name on the camel casing and just make a tag for each one. And that lets you then go and do searches for all the pages that are tagged status and are tagged court and get things like that. Let's go back to crash, and then the basic, the body of crash, what would actually show up is the title, JCrash, its definition. This is called a task. It's a check mark. It's a box. If there's an X, it's checked. If there's not an X, it's not. And so you'll see what that's for in just a sec. And then there's this guy. And this is the second thing I learned about Obsidian that made this work really well, is that Obsidian lets you embed notes inside of each other. And this is how you embed notes inside of each other. This is embedding the JCrash type note inside of crash. And so I don't have to build crash holding all the things in crash type. I can just embed that page in this page. But what's really cool is crash type is, of course, derived from driving incident type. And driving incident type is derived from incident type, and incident type is derived from activity type. And so if I have crash type include driving incident type, and I have driving incident type embed incident type, and so on, Obsidian takes care of all that. And what I end up getting is this really nice page for JCrash. I get JCrash, I get crash type, I get driving incident type, activity type, and then structures, which it doesn't get any real content from. And what's really cool about that is that I don't have to build all this. This all just happens automatically because Obsidian does the embedding for me. And if I want to go to any of these types, there's a link to each one right here. So if I want to go to incident types page, I can click on its link, and here's incidents types page. And it's got the activity type, but nothing else because that's where it inherits from. And if I go back into edit mode, you'll see it's got a lot of front matter as well. It's got an alias, so I can call it NC: incident type. The qualified name. It's got a qualified base name. That's what it's derived from, and that's activity type. And activity types is structures, object type. Got a definition here, and then the types have a contains if they're complex, and the contains lists all the things they contain. And again, this is in metadata, so that you can use that information. And you can query on things. You can say what types contain an incident event, and Obsidian and Dataview together will give you that answer. They'll give you it. And then the tags based off the name. So that's the main thing, is all these NIEM things are all in here, and they can all be queried. Now let me show you the querying. The idea here is that this is not a beginner's tool. Okay? This is not a beginner's tool. This is a tool for geeks that know what they're doing. Okay, so it doesn't have it does have a search box. You can search these things. And you can put, I don't know why it says production there, but you could say crash and driver, and you would get some. Crash driver would be in there. A bunch of other stuff would be in there too. Some might be good, some might not. But what's really powerful is you have the ability to do queries. And so this is the query page. And these are just examples. You could put these queries anywhere as you're working on documentation in an Obsidian vault. And what I've done is, in each case, I've done the query as just pre-formatted text so you can see it, and then the Dataview version. And these Dataview versions, the one that's highlighted here, is going to be replaced by the results of that query. And so let's actually see that. We'll go into preview mode, and it's just really cool. So this is just a copy of the query, but the query says make me a table with the qualified name and the definition, and from the NIEM folder, anywhere where the qualified name equals JCrash, and it gets us JCrash down here. You've got the first column is the name of the page, actually, and I've got Obsidian set up to give me a preview when I hover over it. You don't have to have it do that, but it does that automatically if you want. And that gives me JCrash. Or, if I want to search for substrings, this searches for substrings. Looks for everything inside NIEM. I contains means the qualified name contains a crash as a substring, and the I means case insensitive. So anything that matches crash will show up, and I'll sort it by the file name, so it'll get sorted by basically the names of the elements. And there they all are. And there'll be a lot of them. So I'm going to scroll through them real fast. This is probably really ugly in video. And then we've got another search. A common one is searching for types that contain an element. So if I want to find all the types that contain commercial vehicle carrier, it's not hard to do. Make a table from the types. The types are all in NIEM/types, where I contains, so the contains metadata contains commercial vehicle motor carrier, and this will return everything that contains that element, and in this case it's just J commercial vehicle type. You can also do type-based searches as well. So all types derived from activity type, not a problem. Make me a table from all the types where the base name is activity type, and sort them by the file name. And so this is everything derived from activity type. And you can make these queries arbitrarily complex. You can do anding and oring. I don't think you can do like sub-selects like you can in SQL, but it's like quasi kind of SQL. If you know SQL, it's very easy to pick up. And you can just do a lot of stuff. I think it's really cool. Now that alone is enough. Okay, I got that working and I liked that a lot and I was very, very happy with that. But then I started thinking, but Obsidian is really good for writing documentation and linking it all together. So I started going, what else could you do? What else could you do in this? Well, one of the things I figured out you could do is, well, just normal files like a changelog. I steal these out of the crash driver IEPD that we use in the training. Here's a change log fresh out of that, just copied it over. There's a conformance statement, cool, I just copied that over. There's a README file, I just copied that over as well. Mapping spreadsheet, you can do tables in Markdown in Obsidian. Now tables in Markdown are ugly, but there are a couple of plugins that can help. So here's what they look like. And that's really ugly, but there are tools to make it easier to make these. And this is just a mini, it's not even a full mapping spreadsheet. But you could put mapping spreadsheet type stuff in a node as well. And then what I also really like is diagramming, because diagrams are great to help people understand what an exchange looks like. Well, let me go to edit mode. Obsidian supports fresh out of the box a language called Mermaid. And this is Mermaid here, and this is a definition of a class diagram. And when I go to preview mode, it replaces that definition with the actual class diagram. This one here that we're seeing that's all shades of gray. I'm not a real big fan of how Mermaid styles things, but there are plugins available to let you do Plant UML. I am a big fan of how Plant UML does its UML. So there's a business-oriented UML diagram of Crash Driver, and here's a NIEM-oriented one. But you can also do GraphViz if you want to do more generic type diagrams as well. And if I go back to edit, you'll see that the text, this is all just text. These are different languages for describing diagrams. And this piece of GraphViz here, the language is actually called dot, defines which schemas import which in Crash Driver. And when I go to preview, I get the drawing. So that's really cool as well. So I really like the idea of you could write a lot of your documentation right here in Obsidian. And then because you can do that embedding, you can do this. So this is like the root document, message spec documentation, right? It's a master document. And all I'm doing is just embedding those 5 different things we just looked at. And what I get is, when I go to preview mode, is a very nice document with all the stuff. Now you might not want to do a 40-page master documentation in this, but you might do a smaller one in this. What's also really nice about Obsidian is you can export it to PDF from right inside of Obsidian. I'm not going to do it because I don't want to jump around and I've got my screen sized exactly for doing this video. But you can export to PDF natively. There are also plugins to use Pandoc, and Pandoc can export to all sorts of different formats, including Word. So you could take this and you could make a documentation file, and it would actually work. It would be really cool. The last thing I want to show you is really interesting. I think it's really interesting. Let me split the screen. What's also great about Obsidian is you can split screens and split it up as much as you want. And then let me go to an element. Let's actually do it from the search page because we've already got some stuff up. So let's go ahead and let's go to Crash. And you'll note that the Crash has a checkbox, and checkbox is checked. And if I scroll down, I checked some things under Crash type just for fun, and I went down and I selected activity date out of activity type as well. And those are tasks. They're defined as tasks to Dataview. They're just checkboxes to Obsidian, but to Dataview, they're tasks. And Dataview has, oops, I did not want to do that page though. Let me back that up. I wanted to do it down in the bottom half. You can collate all the tasks that have been checked together, and it's just a little chunk of Dataview. This is all it is. This little chunk of Dataview just says, give me a task list where all the tasks are completed that are in the NIEM folder. What's nice is you say just in the NIEM folder. So the rest of my documentation, for example, I have a to-do file here for things I still have to fix or work on. Those don't show up because those aren't part of the NIEM folder. So if I go back to preview mode, I get this really nice list of all the things I've checked. This is a want list, right? Yeah, that's cool. It gives me a list. I could take this list and go into the SSGT and just go boom, 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 go to each of these pages and mark off these things and be done. But wait, there's more. Dataview has some simple things, but Dataview, this is actually Dataview JS, which is Dataview with JavaScript. So you can write full-blown JavaScript to do things. So I started playing with that. And what I get is, so this is the JavaScript, and it's nasty JavaScript. It's just a hack. Almost almost all my coding is a hack, just the way it is. But when I go to preview mode, what it does is it pulls that same information and it actually massages it into a want list. And this is actually a real want list. I've imported this into the SSGT, and it works. Not everything is in there yet. Attributes don't work. You'll notice that crash type, well, you don't notice here, but crash type, if I had more than one thing in crash type would be repeated multiple times. But the SSGT is actually fine with that. And so it actually works. You can generate an XML want list. You hit copy here, and you have to put it in a file and then import the file because this is the markdown file, and this is what's on disk. Okay, all this code is what's on disk. This is just the display that you see. So you do have to copy this and put it in a file somewhere else, but it actually works. And so I think that's pretty cool that you can go through, and it's actually live too, which is what I really love. If I click on activity description text, you're going to see it updated down here. And so here's the activity type with activity date. Here's the activity type with activity description text inside of it. It updated it live. And again, SSGT is actually okay with this being in here twice. It'll just add it once and then add the next one the second time. It works fine. I'm going to fix that in a future version, but it works. And if I go to the fancy formatted version, it's there as well. Here's our activity description text. And all this stuff is hyperlinked. If I want to go learn more about activity data, I just click on it and I go to the page for it. If I want to do a search for everything with activity, I click on it and I get results over here. So it's just really, it's a really handy way to jump around and learn about NIEM and be able to do a whole bunch of the documentation that I did not expect to be able to do in this format. But it kind of forms a little mini sort of NIEM development IDE, and that was just not expected when I started playing with this. But it works. It's just kind of a really neat thing. It's an experiment. I haven't done real work in it yet, but I'm really kind of pleased that it works the way it does. So I just wanted to show people what mad scientist things I've been up to lately on the side.